KROC AM. Good morning. I'm Andy Brownell, Rochester today. It's Friday. It's sunny. Tom Ostrom's here. He didn't get deported. Good morning, Tom.
Morning, Andrew.
I hope you're having a good week.
Mm-hmm.
I guess we better start with the mailbag before we dive into it.
Yeah, I've been multitasking and not feeling well, and I got 100 emails, and I bet I missed some mailbags. I'm sorry, Andrew. I'll maybe catch them next time. Sorry
fine.
For anybody that sent, but no, I haven't got one ready for you.
No, that's okay then.
Yeah.
I guess we better just dive right into what is the story of the day. I was bowling, so I did not see the president's address. I've read up as much as I possibly could this morning and last night. By the way, bowling, the guy, Dale Storm, bowled a 300 against us, so I know that's becoming a more common occurrence than it used to be in the old days, but a perfect game of bowling is still something to be celebrated.
Yeah.
Of course, we lost because of it, but there's got to be winners and losers, right?
Oh, yeah. That's right.
And in this case as well, the president by himself, with a stroke of a pen, has dramatically changed the immigration picture for the United States, and there's going to be repercussions from it. What those repercussions are remain to be seen. They could be short-term, they could be long-term. This will likely affect the debate for the 2016 presidential race. In other words, it's a very big deal.
Oh, yeah. Well, while you were bowling, I listened and took a few notes, Andrew. And
it's a book.
It's a book, and I'm going to comment. I'm sure our listeners will, and if we have repetition, why fine, because it's so complicated. He is smooth, and his face is absolutely expressionless, and of course the compassion that he showed for the cause, and he quotes scriptures. You know, Democrats are in trouble, though, when they start quoting scriptures. And what he said is, Republican Congress House hasn't acted on this. I have to. Well, the Republicans have. He said John Boehner won't bring something to a vote. Boehner speaking this morning about all this. Well, they have sent immigration ideas over to Harry Reid in the Senate, a Democrat who won't hold votes on hundreds of pieces of legislation. But Obama said, yeah. People who've been here 5 years or less, parents who have children here and children were born here, we've got to forgive them. We'll still strengthen the border. We got to do that. We don't want people's jobs taken away from them by this. Well, they will be. You got 5 million people. That's going to cost jobs. Even the black community is getting tired of the job competition and the low wages, but will it make the borders flood? ICE agents, border agents are concerned with this. But he said compassion requires it, and this will be a one-time deal, and I think it'll encourage even more trouble, and the Republicans have to respond. Elections have consequences, the president said, when he wins, but Republicans, he's going to put it in their face. He's going to get Hispanics motivated for 2016, and he just doesn't care in Saul Alinsky fashion what the other side thinks. Republicans, I think, are going to defund certain things. I think they're going to challenge him in court. There's a constitutional lawyer, I think Washington University, Turley, who thinks this is such an overreach, he'll defend the Republican cause in court. So defunding and court challenges. And sheriffs have written him and say, don't do this. Border Patrol people have low morale. This is just going to make it worse.
Okay.
He says compassion, but the politics and the challenge and the arrogance of the act and its legality, we haven't seen the end yet.
Okay. We're going to have to take our break, and that's a great way to introduce it. We'll take calls as well, 282-1234. And when we get back, I might try to explain why I think the president might have outfoxed the Republicans on this one.
Oh, sure. He's got them scrambling.
Okay, yeah. It's 15 minutes past 10 o'clock. Roscoe's Root Beer and Ribs. Roscoe says veterans deserve more than just one day a year. So this is until further notice. Until they tell us otherwise, every Monday and Tuesday will be Veterans Day at Roscoe's North. Of course, open all year round right up by Shopko North. You bring a veteran to lunch or dinner on Monday or Tuesday, buy your meal, and Roscoe's will pay for the veterans' food. That's equal or less of value with a cap of $10. And trust me, at Roscoe's, you can get a lot of food for $10.
Boy, you can. good food, the sides, the beans, the coleslaw, and of course the barbecue ribs and chicken and beef. And you got to show a military ID for the free meal, and no other coupons with it. But Roscoe's North, next to the pizza shop and Shopco North up there on North Broadway, and you go in there, and the menu is beautifully written on the board, and there's so many choices, and the veterans are going to appreciate and enjoy this. What a nice presentation.
So it's Monday and Tuesday until further notice. Veterans Day at Roscoe's. Don't forget about the gift cards for Christmas gifts. Don't forget about catering as well for your holiday parties. That's Roscoe's, the North location up by Shopco North, open all year round. It's 20 minutes past 10 o'clock. I'm Andy Brownell with Tom Ostrom. On a Friday with the Rochester Today program, we're talking about the president's immigration announcement last night, highly anticipated by just about everybody because we knew it was coming, particularly in the run-up to the election, and a whole lot of fussing going on today. The latest development, by the way, was the House Republicans have filed lawsuits connected to Obamacare, which is seen as a move of direct response to this because I took it as a sign of this is the kind of cooperation, or this is the message you got from the election. It was the first return salvo. Let's put it that way.
Sure, and it's Saul Alinsky stuff. He said for 2 years when he had control of both houses that he didn't have the power to do this, that he couldn't do it, that Congress and legislation has to be done. He can't make legislation. That's what he said for 2 years. And now he's changed his mind, but Republicans are just going to have to do some counterpoints with legislation. But like there was a couple of good things: high tech people, keep them in the country, and strengthen the border, if you will. But the Republicans have to respond.
Okay, here I'm going to try to quick. We have a bunch of calls too, so I'm going to try to do this really quickly. Why I think this might have been a move that long term his side may end up benefiting from. The move was a bit more limited than many people expected. It wasn't blanket amnesty. It affected people who have children who are citizens, that they're here illegally, but the kids were born here. Also affected the so-called dreamers, the young people who were children when they came here and who have not known anything but life in the United States. Their parents are illegal, and technically they're illegal as well because they weren't born here, but they've been here since they were kids. So 5 years or longer, right? The deportations of those people had pretty much not been happening anyway.
Yeah.
And so the net effect really out there in the scope of the real world is negligible. The difference will be their ability to obtain work permits, and that will have an impact on the labor force and wages, and I agree. But what I'm trying to get at is amongst the people who are not buying into one side of the argument or the other side of the argument, who seem to be a little bit ambivalent about it, that the compassion message would ring true with them, this probably is not going to get them all excited. They're probably going to look at this and go, well, what's the difference? These people weren't being deported anyway. As part of a political strategy is where I'm getting at here.
Yeah, it is. But giving them green cards or work cards, that violates the law. Only Congress can do that. It is amnesty in the sense he's giving green cards or work permits to people who shouldn't have them, and which violates congressional law. So this has to be challenged, and Republicans have to come up with a sensible and compassionate, security-conscious counterpoint. But we haven't heard the last of this either in courts or in arguments. And I think Obama's getting ready for the 2016 to get the Spanish vote up. But there are a lot of Spanish legal immigrants and people who want to come here legally. They're the ones that'll take it in the neck, too.
282-1234 is the number. Good morning. Thank you for holding on. I know you've been on hold for a long time. Good morning.
Hi. Say, Nancy...
Cato's back.
Yeah, Nancy Pelosi grubered you. Harry Reid grubered me. Barack Obama grubered the Supreme Court. It's your health care, stupid. You like your government, you can keep it forever, period. Just vote Democrat one more time.
Yeah.
And just look at that bright, shiny immigration policy over there. Nothing over here to see.
Well, that's very good, and it does get Gruber off the news for a while, too.
Little bit.
But we've been Grubered, yeah.
Once again, Cato, you're pointing out what we've pointed out numerous times. If you do not have an informed electorate, it's pretty hard to have a working, functioning representative republic.
Yeah, you bet.
All right.
What do you think will happen? Legal challenges? Republicans take it in the neck? Obama look bad eventually or good? What's going to happen? My
I
guru.
think the Republicans have to bring in a good immigration policy, and there's a lot that needs to be done on that. And they can plop it right on the president's desk about 3 days into the session, I should think. Once they're in the majorities.
Here's the problem that Republicans have.
Yeah.
Is that within their own ranks, there are a lot of folks who have a lot of ties to the same big business interests that wanted what the president did do to happen.
Chamber of Commerce.
And that having the president use his executive authority to do this probably has a lot of people in the halls of Congress breathing a sigh of relief because they don't have to take the vote.
Right, but Boehner's got trouble now. He's got to fight back or the election is contaminated, and he's got the Tea Party mattered in the Dickens. He's got other Republicans that are more willing to compromise. But Cato's got a good point. Craft some legislation on this, put it in the desk, because the president said, you send me something I can sign, we'll take away the executive orders. Maybe a court will, too.
All right, Cato, thanks for the call.
Right.
Good to hear from you.
Uh-huh.
282-1234. We'll take a couple more calls before the news break. Good morning. You're on KROC.
Good morning.
Morning.
Hi.
I think the bottom line issue here is the president exceeded his authority. He doesn't make laws, he enforces them. And a couple of points that he made that Republicans did the same thing. Now, President Reagan did not issue amnesty. He was enforcing the Simpson-Mazzoli Act that Congress passed, a bipartisan act that created a pathway to citizenship for 3 million undocumented immigrants. So I think, once again, President Obama lied to the American people last night. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for the call. Here's the legal argument, as far as I can understand it, that they're trying to support this, that this is getting into splitting hairs, and that's usually the way it is in a legal argument. There is a law on the books that allows a person who is a legal immigrant to the United States to sponsor family members who do not have legal status. Now, in a normal situation, that person would be in another country and would go through legal channels and obtain the proper paperwork to travel to the United States and live here legally. They're using that basis as the argument that you have the children born of illegal aliens in the United States, even though they're minors, are the ones who are now sponsoring their parents as the legal immigrant, to become the legal immigrant. And it's a twist, and I don't know if it will stand legal challenge, but that, as I understand it, is the basis of their legal argument.
Now, you wonder, too...
And that is a law that is in existence.
Well, that's a good point.
It's a twist, though.
And you wonder if this is going to stimulate people coming over the border more than ever now, saying, hey, we got to get in and we can get under this.
282-1234. We do have to take a news break in a moment, but we'll do another call. Good morning. Thanks for calling in.
Yeah. First off, I think that no matter what happens, the Republicans will still manage to shoot themselves in both.
How?
And second, as far as the president lying to us, he's been doing that all along, and nobody ever seems to be paying any attention. But I have no strong feelings about the laborers coming across the border. 40 years ago, I worked on the Eisenhower Tunnel out in Colorado. They sent, I think, 24 of us up there one morning to work, and in 3 days, the only ones left were me, my brother, a kid from Nebraska, and a bunch of Chicanos. And they were good, hard-working people. I have no problem with them being here. I'd a lot rather associate them with them than somebody like Rush Limbaugh that sat on his fat butt for years and asked to be done. What I'm saying is, if they use their head a little bit, they ought to be able to make Obama look like the idiot he is. But I'll hang up and listen.
Hey, thanks a lot for the call.
Great.
He's got some great points.
How he said things.
Well, and that is the Republicans' problem in this situation, that you do have 11 million people here illegally, somewhere between 11 and 15 million are the latest estimates. And realistically, we've been talking about this for years, you were not going to load up all of them. And I'm stressing the word all, because obviously there are some people here who are criminal elements. There are people you do not want in your country. And what I'm trying to say is, if you were to take all of these people who the president partly addressed and look at this realistically, their deportation probably was never a realistic option. I know there's people out there right now who are screaming at me on the radio saying, what do you mean that's the only thing we can do to straighten this out? But you have the other side in this argument, and whatever compromise you're going to craft is going to have to work that in place. And I think that if you don't take that off the table, and if the Republicans continue to push that we have to take everybody and throw them on the other side of the border and then do the paperwork and then let them in some sort of orderly fashion, they will never get a bill passed, and then the president will win this argument.
Most Republicans want to pass the amnesty. They want it legal and they want it consistent. And the president is giving special privileges to millions of people. That's a legal issue. And as our previous caller said, he's saying the Republican presidents did it too. But as our caller said, the presidents who did, Reagan and the Bushes, were enforcing congressional-made legislation or law. And here's where the president is out of bounds. I think he's making law that's not there. But it's an interesting and compelling issue, and Obama has struck as he does. Elections don't mean anything if he loses them, and we'll see how inept or apt the Republicans are in solving the immigration problem, sending things to his desk, and responding to this action.
All right, we have to take our break for news. We'll talk more about this topic and others after the news break. We'll take more calls as well. 282-1234 is that number. Up to 20 in the downtown with the sunshine at KROC AM. Brent Ackerman's in the news center. He is up next. News Talk 1340 KROC AM, 20 in the downtown. I'm Andy Brownell with Tom Ostrom. It's Friday on Rochester Today, talking about, of course, the topic of the day, the move by the president to basically grant, I guess the term would be temporary amnesty, because this could be reversed. It's not law. To 4.5 million, maybe 5 million people altogether that they'll be able to. They're already here illegally, but this will allow them to obtain work permits and take away the risk of deportation if they do go out there and find employment. And I think if I look at this realistically, obviously this would have an impact on the job markets, but I think probably the highest risk from this move, and this would be to the president himself, would be that, as what we saw back in the 1980s when President Reagan used his executive authority to expand, first of all, sign the legislation that created that path to citizenship for about 3 million people who were here illegally, and then used executive authority to expand that by about 1.5 million more. That there was a loophole in the law, and they looked at what the intent of the law was, and they realized the language had excluded a number of those people, and so he used his executive authority to erase that loophole until the legislation was passed, and it was passed eventually. Right. But I guess what I'm trying to say is what we all saw was the effect of that was another wave of illegal immigration that was even larger than the original wave of illegal immigration, and that is the risk that the president is running here, is that this will spark yet another wave will take us from 11 to 15 million to 20 million or more people.
That's right, and the ICE agents, the border agents, are demoralized. They said working conditions are terrible. We're not allowed to enforce the law, and it's just going to get worse down here after this. And giving work permits to illegals is illegal, and it doesn't. Legislation doesn't allow that. And police officers and sheriffs wrote to the president. He says, "We've got law officers being killed by criminal illegals. This is just going to encourage the problem." And so the challenges have to go, the legal challenges. President Obama said he wants a rational debate about it, but rational means agreeing with him. He did mention we're going to increase border security, and we don't want to take jobs from people, but this will.
The political response will be very, very interesting because in my view, if the Republicans overplay their hand on this, they could end up on the short end of the stick. And this actually could force a real debate on this issue, but I actually doubt it because the powers that may be, I think, are actually benefiting from the current system.
That's right, but if the Republicans elect a president and keep both houses of Congress in 2016, they can cancel out this executive order and do things their own way. And remember, Republicans are going to be in charge of committees. I get mad because Republicans hold these oversight hearings and nobody gets accountable. Nobody gets put in jail. The IRS says we haven't got time to look for Lois Lerner's emails. The Fast and Furious. Oh, some leaks of Fast and Furious show Holder and his assistants talking with the White House how to stop reporters from reporting on Cheryl Atkinson, and Holder's public relations person got a hold of the White House deputy. This was a Freedom of Information Act document, and said, "We got to stop Cheryl Atkinson, CBS. She's out of control," as if the executive branch should be able to control reporters. But the point is, what I'm trying to say is, Republicans are going to be in charge of committees in January. They might be able to look at these scandals again, have a new Department of Justice head, Attorney General, who then will start prosecuting people that were involved in these scandals. And they're going to have to go after this immigration business, too, when they're in charge of, and they're going to go after Gruber. So things could change after January, but that'll take a while.
The other aspect of this is that the move, according to most polling, regardless of what the impact will be, is not very popular with the American people. The issue itself had fallen off the radar for quite some time. And in fact, when it was on the radar, in recent months, it had been in a negative light, as in less support for an influx of people from south of the border and more support for border security. So the president has put himself on the opposite side of what the polls show most Americans' views are at this point in time. So he is taking a pretty big political risk with this
He is, but he's aware of what you said, because that was the first point in his speech, that he's going to increase border security. He did that to take that off the table, or to calm the waters on that, so he's aware of that too.
Yeah, the definition of strengthening border security is the question that has to be answered.
Sure.
282-1234 is the number. Good morning, you're on KROC.
Good morning, guys.
Morning.
The only thing I can think of as far as the speech last night, and I listened to it, I wasn't horribly impressed, but if you didn't know anything about the U.S. Constitution, you'd think he was being very logical. Why don't we can't round up all these people? That would be unkind, and then made it. He put together a pretty logical but illegal case on what he was doing. There's no question about that.
Sure, and he's taking, he says to Republicans, try to impeach me, you'll look bad. Try to close down the government or use your budgetary powers, you'll look bad. He challenged him right out of the box that you can't do anything about this.
Well, it was pretty well explained yesterday, even by one of the key Republicans, that this particular area where the permits are issued and everything else is funded by application fees, so the budgetary moves would not have an impact. They would be able to operate on their own revenues.
Yeah, Andy, I think that was one of the more clever things that he did. Not that the U.S. government's going to spend a lot of time trying to collect the $500, but they'd say, well, we've got the money, so you can't stop me. The only other comment I would make is that it appears to me that after a severe drubbing in the polls at the midterms, the only thing that Obama was considering doing was the best defense is a good offense.
Yes.
Where you simply seize the initiative, and even though you're out of favor and have lost not just the House, but now the Senate as well, he still wants to control the narrative.
You bet, and it's Saul Alinsky. Keep the enemy on the defensive and keep the offensive, as you just said. That's what he's doing. He's so good politically. Paul Ryan, the Wisconsin Republican representative, he is head of the Ways and Means Committee now, and we'll see if any defunding takes place or appropriations modifications, what he does.
Well, what are you going to defund?
Just cut the expenditures for the enforcement of the law and the cost. Look at,
then you twist the political argument around, going, "Oh, wait a minute! By doing that, all you did was make it more difficult to deport the criminal element."
Well, the deporting is out of the discussion, I think, now too. But the impact of this on states, you can bet governors are saying, "My gosh, to carry this out and to allow these policies to go through, we're going to have to increase our expenditures for this new population and their privileges and their rights and their benefits." This means they can get benefits if illegal is no longer illegal.
Correct me, I didn't see the speech, but I thought he said no, they wouldn't be eligible for benefits.
Sure he did. Well, but what difference does it make what he says? He says anything. Go ahead.
Yeah, Tom, I think you're right as far as he's made a proclamation that and handed the bill to the states because they're going to be here. The other thing is,
but they are here already. They have to acknowledge that.
But as far as I'm talking about the
eligibility for benefits,
will be encouraged to come across thinking, you know what, they did this once. I think this
right.
needs to be the mode of the day.
Yeah.
And the other issue that you're going to have is the rules are you have to have an anchor baby. Well, I think you're going to find people coming here to produce children to make sure that they're in line for the next go around.
I think we already saw that before this too. To have that future ahead for a family member. I think that was a strategy. People come over here, have the baby. At least the kid will have citizenship.
And then he's dependent on the Republicans being afraid to go after this. It's too complicated, just like Obamacare. And he's depending on, as you all have said, Republicans managing to shoot themselves in the foot with their inarticulations.
Well, it's pretty hard to how do you explain the U.S. Constitution in 3 easy statements? I mean, it's pretty hard to do, right?
Well, the other part of this is that whatever legal challenges are mounted are going to take an enormous amount of time. Unless the unlikely, and I would put it as a highly unlikely incident that the U.S. Supreme Court steps into a pitched battle between the legislative branch and the executive branch. Well, and I don't see it happening.
Yeah, Andy, I think you're right. I don't think the battle will be between the legislative and one third of the government is not going to entertain a suit between the other 2/3. I think that'd be an overstep on their part.
Unless the incidents of President Obama's overreach is so constitutionally abhorrent that some justices say we have to say something. But you guys are right. The politics of it, who knows what a court will do.
Now, I think the hope is that you've got the people like Arizona and California and the folks, the states that have large Latino populations and will be seeing the increase. They perhaps have standing with the courts. And that might be the way that it could be challenged legally and handled by the courts as it should have been.
All right.
Okay.
Hey, thanks, guys.
It's going to be interesting times. Thanks for the call. Good morning. You are on KROC AM.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good.
Well, thanks.
Thank you.
Well, I just have 2 points. One is, first of all, how do these people who have been here for an extended period of time, how do they prove that they've been here 5 years or longer versus 1 year or 2 years?
I think a lot of... school records, because a lot of these kids have been enrolled in public schools.
And bills and, electric
utility bills.
But still, your point's well taken.
Yep.
Go ahead.
All right. And then the second point is, I'm not so sure that they're going to be all that thrilled that they can become citizens once they have to start paying all of the taxes and all of the mandated insurances and Obamacares and all that kind of thing. I think they may realize that they had a much better deal prior to than what they're going to have.
Interesting.
My experience with illegals is limited. I have known a few, but my experience with those who were here, who had obtained work permits, green cards to be here legally and work, they would do just about anything to obtain U.S. citizenship. And they from the ones I've dealt with, the people, they love this country and they would love to be part of it.
But
they love Mexico. They love. Don't get me wrong. It's not that they hate their native land either, but they love the opportunity that they have here in this country.
But caller, to add to your list of problematic responses, what do people who are trying to get here legally think, whether they're from Mexico or from Europe and they're in line and they're filling out the forms? Are they saying, as a caller said, I've been Gruberized, we're stupid?
You know what I'd be doing? If I was one, I'd be getting an airline ticket to Juarez, and I'd find a way to walk across and be here illegally, because that's the message it sends. I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Yep, exactly. It's a sad situation and a sad state of affairs we're currently in.
Yeah, 5 million people to get looking for jobs when we've got unemployment problems and with some minority groups. I read that even some legal Hispanics who've gotten here legally and Hispanics who've been born here are starting to say, stop the floodgates.
Yep.
Okay.
Well, have a good weekend, guys.
Yeah, thanks a lot for the call.
Thank you for your call.
But I will also say that I know locally, and I can't speak beyond locally, that at some of the lower paying hospitality service jobs, they're starting to have a hard time finding people for those positions, that they're filling up fast. But I'm only speaking locally, and we have a relatively specialized situation here, so that does not. I'm not going to equate that to the nation as a whole. It is 8 minutes away from 11 o'clock, and it's 21 in downtown Rochester. Victoria's Restaurante and Wine Bar. They're in downtown Rochester, but they can be anywhere you're at with their catering. They can bring out the pasta bar. They can bring out the delicious rolls. They can bring out just about anything you need to make your event a wonderful and memorable event with the catering services supplied by Victoria's.
Yeah, take away the pressures of holiday entertaining and just go with the fun and call 280-6232, 280-6232. And Jason and Barb and the other catering experts at Victoria's will take care of all your needs, the menus and the distribution and the logistics. And Victoria's Restaurante has great gift cards, too.
They do, and they can help you out with all of your holiday plans. So just give them a ring, or just stop by and have dinner or lunch and talk to them while you're there. That's Victoria's Restaurante and Wine Bar, 1st Avenue Southwest in downtown Rochester. 3 minutes away from 11 o'clock. Thomas, it's our zipping by. If you want to hear a replay of the program later on today, you can find the podcast on KRLCAM.com. You'll find it on Facebook as well later on. Monday, I got to mention, it'll be the Power of Learning show with Jim Walters. He'll be in the studio on Monday, so be sure to tune in for that. We only have a couple minutes left. I know you got some topics you want to discuss.
4 or 5 quick points. How much have I got?
You got 2 minutes.
2 minutes, okay. First of all, it's kind of funny. U.S. Islamic groups like CARE are crying foul. The rulers of the Gulf states, the Emirates, designated the U.S. Islamic groups as terrorist, CARE and the rest of them. So they're talking about that. President Obama, horrible atrocities in Jerusalem, Muslim extremists running cars over Israelis, etc. Obama condemns these attacks as horrific, but he asked the Jews and the Arabs to please coordinate and lessen the terror. The Muslim faith, the last string of atrocities and beheadings in the Middle East, Obama has to say, we're sorry, it's terrible, but that has nothing to do with the Muslim faith. He's always got to get that in. It's got nothing to do. Well, it does. The Israeli-Palestinian problem has got to do with the Muslim faith. China, when President Obama was in China, they put a stealth jet right in front of them. They're hacking our computers, and they're stealing our stuff, and they got a jet plane that looks just like our stealth jet, and they paraded it out right in front of Obama.
I don't
know if he got it. And the Russian defense...
It was stealth. He didn't see it.
Yeah. Oh. Okay. And finally, one more thing. The Russian Defense Ministry, bomber patrols. I've said they're coming close to Alaska, and they're coming, submarines are in the Atlantic. They've been in the Gulf. And now Putin says our bomber patrols are going to be in the Gulf of Mexico. What are you going to do about it?
And where's he going to fly him out of? Cuba? I mean, they're just going to do mid-air fueling and fly him that far. The logistics of it are incredible that he's going to try to do that.
Well, maybe one of them will crash in the United States.
Or does he have Venezuela? He can use a base. I don't know.
Yeah, and Cuba. Yeah, you're right.
Okay, let me see. I got to back. Oh, I know what I had to mention. This goes back to the immigration thing. There was a story out today I caught that in Mexico, that if a foreign worker crosses the border, and it does happen, just not as often, but if somebody crosses from the United States into Mexico to work in Mexico, they're required to register and pay a daily fee. Because they said, "Hey, you're coming to our country to work. We need to know who you are, and we're going to collect a little tax on the side." So I thought that was kind of funny.
That is.
And also, well, we don't have time, but the whole business in Jerusalem this week and the ongoing conflict over it's the Temple Mount is what we're talking about here, right?
And the mosque,
And I do agree. Obama's not the only one to do this, but can you not resist the temptation? Can you not just decry the horrible atrocity and just leave it at that? Because then you enter into politics when you go, yeah, but you Israelis shouldn't have done that. Yeah. It is 11 o'clock, KROC AM Rochester. We'll see Tom on Tuesday. It's time for ABC News.